As a former National Geographic photographer, I've been speaking about vision and creativity for the last 20 years. And both are more important today than they've ever been. Why? Because more than any tech tip or marketing plan, it's your vision that's going to make you a success. Because vision controls our perception, and our perception becomes our reality. So what is your vision? What is it? Could you distill it down to 6 words? Your own private bumper sticker? 6 words when every morning you got up and said those words, you said yes. Most of us don't even think about our vision. Certainly, we don't spend time trying to bring it into focus. But as I said, vision controls our perception, and perception becomes our reality. So think about it for a minute. Think about your vision. Try and see it. A vision for your life. Is it a vision that gives you energy? That lifts you up? That brings you joy? That makes you proud to be a member of the human race? There's an old story about 2 men working in a courtyard in medieval Italy. And when asked what they were doing, one man said he was chipping stone, and the other said he was building a cathedral. I rest my case. That's the kind of vision I want to have. Now, these are turbulent times, and the waves of change seems to threaten our very survival. So what will your vision allow you to see? Will you look out at a dim, half-colored world where dreams disappear in the distance? A world where goals don't even seem worth striving for? Or will your vision allow you to see a world still full of beauty and joy and possibility? My time at the Geographic gave me a wonderful vision. What they charged me with every time they sent me out was to celebrate what was right with the world. To celebrate what was right rather than wallowing in what was wrong. I mean, why do you think we keep those silly yellow magazines? It's a national sacrilege to throw one away. Why? Because they celebrate what's right with the world. That was the vision I was charged with. Let me share with you how it changed my life. For years, I was out there living that vision. And the more I believed it, the more I would see it. From the tallest mountains, to rivers drenched in sunlight, to waterfalls and rainbows. Everywhere I looked, there would be amazing beauty for me to photograph, and in those landscapes were lessons that would change my life. Conservationist John Muir once wrote, "When we try and pick out any one thing by itself, we'll find it hitched to everything else in the universe." And the more I photographed, the more nature showed me that connection and beauty graced by light. And in the Geographic's view, man was not something separate from this, just as magical, just as unique as anything else on the planet. And the more I just went out and celebrated the best in humanity, the more I could see it. I could see it in the faces of those at work, or the body language of those at play, those in their youth or in their age. I could see it. I could see that light that shines not on us, but from within us. From within us when we have the courage to let it out. It was the same light I'd seen in nature that didn't seem to have to trust to expose itself, but just graced us every day with the delicacy of a flower or the light of a breaking storm. And it was my job to celebrate it, the very best we had to offer. And the more I believed it, the more I would see it. Everywhere I looked, the banquet was laid. And yet, the more I celebrated the beauty of the world, the more I found this strange conflict growing up between between the worldview of the geographic and the worldview that I'd been raised in since I was a child. I mean, you all know it. The law of the jungle, eat or be eaten. My win is your loss. Second place is the first loser. I saw that on a t-shirt the other day. That is a very depressing way to look at life. Now, maybe it's how we had to look at it when we dragged ourselves to the mouth of our cave every morning and ran into a saber-toothed tiger. But come on. All of us are playing life at a lot higher level than that. And yet when we get scared or fearful, that's the paradigm that rises up. But that's not what nature was showing me. Nature was showing me incredible beauty and possibility standing just beyond the rat race saying, hello, hello. Always there if I was open enough to see it. I mean, come on. Mother Nature never stood in front of a forest and said, there is one great photograph hidden here. One photographer will find it, and the rest of you will be hopeless losers. No, nature said, how many rolls you got, Dewitt? Bring it on. Bring it on. I'll fill it up. I'll fill it up with beauty and possibility beyond your wildest imaginings, right down to my tiniest seed. And that was just a much more interesting philosophy, a much more compassionate way of looking at the universe. And at some point, I just decided to embrace it. I just decided that if I had a choice between a world based on scarcity and fear and one based on possibility, then man, I was choosing possibility. And that no matter how dry and desolate, how bleak and devoid of possibilities a situation might seem, that I would just believe that if I was open to it, I could find a perspective. In this case, just by dropping down into that slot canyon and looking back the other way, a perspective that would transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Nature was sharing with me one of her most important lessons. Time and again, she would show me that there's more than one right answer. There's more than one right answer. God, it seems so simple, but it is the key to creativity. There are 1,000 ways to come at any challenge to find that extraordinary view. And I know that so clearly from my photography. But sometimes it's just so hard to bring over into the rest of my life. They sent me up to the little town called Smith River. They raise about 80% of the Easter lilies in the country around that village. And that's the story that I had to tell. And I've got a perspective where I've got picked lilies and unpicked lilies and the boy picking them and good body language as he puts them in the box and a little bit of the region's architecture and the weather. One right answer, a pretty good one. But boy, as a photographer, I'd never think of stopping there. I took that picture immediately. I grabbed another lens, walked over a couple rows, knelt down and found another right answer. Same parameters of the problem, now seen from a totally different point of view. And my favorite right answer that day was this one. They were using a chopper in the field. I got a ride, went up a couple 100 feet, looked down, saw the extraordinary and the ordinary. 3 right answers. So many things begin to change when you come at the world from that perspective of more than one right answer. I mean, first of all, you don't stop at the initial right answer. Come on, that's just doing your job. You wouldn't be here on this call this morning if you stopped at the first right answer. But the kick is that when you really believe it, then as you press out looking for that next right answer, which you have to do every day, you do so not in terror, but comfortably, knowing it's going to be there for you. And you really do begin to embrace change rather than fear it. You really do hit the day with a sense of possibility, not paralysis. And you just get more and more comfortable with reframing an obstacle into an opportunity. I remember one time they sent me to the Selkirk Mountains of British Columbia. Beautiful area. And I came upon this field of dandelions. I should have been ecstatic. but I was not in a seize the day kind of mood. And I looked out over that field. I took a snapshot. I said, I don't know, the light's not quite right. I'll come back tomorrow. I didn't engage. We all know what happens when you don't engage. Tomorrow turns into the next day turns into the next week, and by the time I got back to that field, no more dandelions. I had puffballs. I wanted dandelions, I had puffballs, and I was just about to leave when this little voice in my head said, Dewitt, wait, what's here to celebrate? What are you falling in love with? You wanted dandelions. You got puffballs. Puffballs, puffballs, puffballs. Pretty soon I'm down on the ground with the puffballs. I'm rolling around with the puffballs. I'm on top of the puffballs. I'm underneath the puffballs. And all of a sudden, whoa, that extraordinary view. It always seemed to be there if I was open enough to see it. So that just became the way I would shoot. They'd send me out to amazing places like Rose Spit at the top of Graham Island off the coast of British Columbia. And on that incredible piece of real estate, the Haida Indians believed that mankind first came into existence when Raven opened up a clamshell and let him out. And I was lucky enough to be there one day with two Haida braves dancing on the beach. This is one of the first shots, the drummer in the background, the boy dancing in the foreground. And I'm asking what's here to celebrate. And at that point, it was just the boy's face. So I took out my telephoto lens and zoomed in on it. And I'm loving this shot. But even as I'm taking it, I hear this little voice in my head saying, Dewitt, you're too close. It's a nice right answer, but you're too close. You've forgotten who this boy is or where he is. It's now just a shot of a child. It's no longer a shot of a Haida. And so even though this was a really good right answer, quickly, easily, comfortably, I let it go. Zoomed back a bit, picked up the paddle, much better shot. In fact, the Geographic agreed and ran it as the opening spread in the article. And what I began to see was that, it's not about finding the right answer. It's not even about finding another right answer. What life is about is continually finding the next right answer. Continually finding the next right answer, easily, comfortably, confidently twisting that focus ring of our lives back and forth, keeping that extraordinary vision in focus. Now, let me share with you one more lesson about my time at the Geographic. My first published photographs were on the pages of that magazine. I still find that really hard to believe, but that's what happened. And I was 26 years old when Bob Gilka, the head of photography, called me back to the Geographic in the headquarters of Washington, D.C. to give me my marching orders. And I remember standing there in the lobby, what they call Explorers Hall, and I was looking at giant globes and dog sleds and flags planted on Everest and surrounded by the most beautiful photographs I'd ever seen in my life. How was I ever going to prove myself that I was worthy of working there? And then I was taken upstairs and into Bob's office. And Bob was a very blunt man, just straight and to the point, and a little scary. He had a mat outside his doorway that said, "Wipe your knees before entering." Well, that morning I was completely unprepared for what he said to me. He stopped me cold. He changed the way I did everything from that day forward. He looked at me over the desk and he said, Dewitt, the people who photograph for the magazine are the best in the world. And you're one of them now because I just hired you. You're good. You don't have to prove yourself. I didn't have to prove myself? Honestly, that's all I'd been thinking about since I got the assignment. How could I show everybody that I was worthy? How could I best the others who were already shooting for the magazine? And then Bob leaned over the desk further and he said, "You don't have to prove yourself, but by God, every day you had better improve yourself." His words went in. Don't prove yourself, improve yourself. Bob was still talking. I put together a great group of people here. I don't want you to waste your time or energy trying to show me or anybody else that you're better than the other photographers. I want you to spend every day trying to be better than you were yesterday. Don't prove yourself, improve yourself. I don't know how many times I've thought about it. I've acted on it since the day in Bob's office. And living that lesson, I've come to see that life really is far more about cooperation than competition. It wasn't proving myself or taking others down that allowed me to succeed, but simply, consciously, continuously improving myself every day, honing my skills, focusing my vision. Ultimately, the only person I was trying to surpass was me. And doing that over and over again got me to where I am today. So when we really are doing that, improving, not proving, believing that there's more than one right answer, reframing obstacles into opportunities, that's when we'll begin to lose all our fear of mistakes or setbacks. This is the Butter and Eggs Day parade in Petaluma, California. I lived in Petaluma for 9 years and I raised my kids there. And one year in the parade, I saw a veteran handing flags to the kids beside the road. And I thought, great shot. And I'm a professional, so I'm going to grab it, right? So I slapped on a telephoto lens and I ran over there and I missed it. I missed it. Nobody's given anything to anybody in this shot. It's a mistake. It's a setback. But come on, we don't learn without making mistakes. When I worked for the Geographic, the average article was shot in 400 rolls of film. That's over 14,000 images to get the 30 that go in an article. And now with digital, it's twice that. I'm not thinking about making mistakes. I'm looking for the next right answer. Did I get it? No, I got E.T.'s hand over there on the right. You know, amateur photographers will often ask me, how many good ones do you get in an 8 gig card? That's the amateur question. That's the question based on fear of making mistakes. I turn it back to them. I say, I'm sorry, that's the amateur question. The professional question is, did you get it? Did you get it? I don't care how many shots it takes. We all know when those right answers come into focus, they just go ka-chong, you know, and you got it. But you're not going to get it unless you're willing to press out on the edge of your own comfortable envelope to take the risk to look for that next right answer. I mean, come on. It is not trespassing to go beyond your own boundaries. How many good ones do you get in a roll of 36? No. Did you get it? So how do we answer that question? Yes, every time. When I'd take off after an extraordinary vision, there were 4 steps that I'd try and go through. And the first one was to train my technique. To train my technique, because vision without technique is blind. It's fine to have a brilliant idea, but if you don't have the technique and the technology to manifest it, you have nothing. So I'd spend days, weeks, months with my technique, f-stops and shutter speeds and strobes, so that when nature presented me with a window of opportunity, I wasn't worried about what lens was on my camera. I was there, ready to capture it. I call this one midlife rebirth. So first, I want to train my technique. And then I want to put myself in the place of most potential. The place of most potential. If nature is going to open up multiple windows of opportunity, where do I have the best chance of finding them? So I was doing a book for the Geographic on Lake Powell. And I was coming back from shooting some morning aerials, and I looked down at an edge of what I thought was an uninhabited and uninhabitable part of the lake. And I saw a little road and a car. I couldn't believe anybody could get out there. And yet seeing it, I knew it was possible. So I came back to my campsite and I found a point on the map that point was in the perfect direction. I checked in another book and figured out what day I wanted to be out there. rented a four-wheel drive, filled it with provisions, bumped all the way out to that overlook. But boy, I was there in the place of most potential the night the full moon rose over the lake. And when you're there in the place of most potential with your technique down, boy, those right answers just keep coming. Train your technique. Put yourself in the place of most potential. And then the third step, it seems like the easiest, but I really think it's the hardest. And that's just to open to possibilities. Possibilities you never dreamed of. I was shooting a little story in Marine World, and I'd shot the dolphins and the killer whales, the tigers, the water skiers. I had it. I was going back to the car. And then just out of the corner of my eye, I saw a thing called a dancing fountain. I mean, you've seen them. The water comes out of one, it goes in a big parabola into another one, out of that into the next. It looks like a big worm going across the horizon. And this kid has his hand on the source. And he's ready, and so am I. And I know what that next right answer is going to be. And man, I nailed it. But I'm not putting on the brakes. I'm not thinking this is the only right answer. I'm not staying closed. I'm opening, because if I didn't, I never would have seen this one. Just being open to possibilities you never dreamed of. When the great photographer Minor White would go out to photograph, he would never say, "What will I take today?" Rather, he would ask, "What will I be given today?" And I would add, "Will I be open enough to see it?" Train your technique. Put yourself in the place of most potential. Open to possibilities. And then finally, focus your vision by celebrating what's right in the situation. Live that vision at the geographic. So no matter how weird a situation I'd walk into, the first thing I'm going to ask is, what's there to celebrate? What's right with the situation? Well, in this case, it's easy, because that just happens to be my daughter. Most dads would help their daughter in this situation. But it didn't matter. Whenever I could get a lock on what was right with the situation, then I could use all of my technique and technology to enhance that and get rid of everything else. Instead of starting, as we so often do, by griping about what's wrong with the situation, what's right with it? Because that connects us with our passion. That emancipates the energy. By celebrating what's right, we find the energy to fix what's wrong. And that's so important right now, is to have a vision that will give us energy at a time when so many things are trying to take it away. As Michelangelo once said, "I saw an angel in the stone and carved to set it free." I saw an angel in the stone and carved to set it free. Now, when I applied these 4 techniques, I made some incredible images. Simple, powerful, strong, again and again. I put myself in the place of most potential and was ready to capture that defining moment. I locked in those images by always beginning by celebrating what was best, and then enhancing that and letting the rest fall away. Now, let me just show you one last example of how all these techniques go together. And this time, not from the geographic, but a big advertising shoot for Dewar's Scotch. And they sent me over to Scotland with a crew of 9 and a big budget and a bunch of clients. And they asked me to photograph salmon fishing on Scotland's River Tweed. I'd done my homework. I knew what I wanted to have happen. We came down that windy road to the River Tweed, and I had visions of backlit salmon and silver cataracts and leaping fish, and the windy road delivered us, and there it was. Looked like the East Sandusky River, the river without drama, And I turned to the art director. I said, "What are we going to do?" He said, "I don't know. I'm car sick. I'm going to go back to the room." So it was up to me. Just like every day, it's up to you. So I got talking to one of the guides, the gillies, the gentleman there in the foreground. Each stretch of the river, each beat has a different guide, a different gilly, and they know every rock and every shoal and every riffle. And he told me that salmon fishing in Scotland's a very formal affair. You wear a coat and a tie and a hat and chest waders. And now I'm getting intrigued. And then he said, when you catch a salmon on the beat, you take it up to the fish house, and there's a book there that lists every salmon caught in the last 100 years. Now I'm beginning to see this great formal dance that these guys are doing, a salmon gavotte on the river, you know. And then he said, you know, laddie, there was mist on the water this morning. That's unusual for this time of year. And I climbed all over it, and I said, I want to be in the place of most potential. So I'm out there 2 hours before dawn, and when the light starts coming up, I got the boats, and I got the fishermen, and I got the ghillie, I got the right lens, I got the right focus. I got my first right answer. And then I started looking for my next right answer. And I turned around. Oh, boy, now it was really getting good. And as I'm shooting that, my intellect realizes the sun is going to come up behind the trees in the background. So I yelled at the guys to get in the boat and row down there because I want to be in the place of most potential. And man, now it was really getting good. And I'm not worried about making mistakes. I'm just looking for that next right answer. And they just kept coming. And this was the final ad. Why would a man rise before dawn to fish for salmon on Scotland's River Tweed? Why indeed? The good things in life stay that way. You know, we are all of us, on the same great journey. A journey down a river we call life. We can't see the future. We can't know for certain whether the way ahead will be calm or turbulent. But if we have the right lens, the right vision, we can meet any situation. And even if it's pretty good, we can make it even better. We can look at what others might call ordinary. And even if it's pretty good, we can go out and make it extraordinary. We can celebrate the best in every situation, in every person, every day. We'll have the tools and the vision to face any challenge, any rapids, all the while celebrating with gratitude and with grace all that we've been given. That perspective, that vision, it will change your life as it has changed mine. Celebrate what's right with the world.